Hey everyone, I'd like to welcome you to the Week 5 housekeeping video. We're going to go over what's on your plate for this week in terms of Week 5, as well as to take a look at some additional items to be successful inside the course. So what we're going to cover, what's on your plate for this week, review the late assignment policy, what can and can't still be submitted at this point, the feedback and grading schedule for this week, my availability, the learning environment in terms of success inside the class. We are past the midpoint for this particular course, so take a look at that. And then I'll go over, there are videos in the announcements for the challenge activities from the Zybook for this week. We'll take a look at where those are located and then review the items inside of Week 5's module. So without further ado, we'll get started. So what is due this on your plate this week? Review the module resources. That's pretty much a standard across the board, and we'll cover that here inside the presentation. You have a set of participation and challenge activities from Week 5's perspective that's on your plate. As a reminder, you have the full 8 weeks on any challenge or participation activity to get those wrapped up by the last day of class, 11:59 p.m. in your time zone. You have a Week 5 submission of assignment. We'll take a look at that. And then Week 6, very similar to what you had in one of the previous week. This is a project 2 that will encapsulate things that are going on. You'll have until the end of Week 7 to get that submitted in to me. So we'll take a look at that project 2 guidelines and rubric. Okay, so for late assignment policy, we've already addressed this previously. Any participation or challenge activities, those open the first day of class. They can be completed at any point during the course. So throughout the whole entire 8 weeks, without penalty, you can finish any challenge or participation activity that's out there. Discussion forums next week will be a graded discussion forum. The postings on those have to be completed in the week they are assigned. This is the most stringent as far as from the class perspective, but just a reminder, next week there is a discussion forum that you will need an initial post and 2 quality responses. We'll address that next week in the housekeeping video. The written assignments, week 2 and week 3's written assignment, the real estate analysis part 1 and part 2. All of the feedback should be out there on those guys no later than Tuesday of week 5. So at the end of week 4, there is no more submissions on those because there is a 2-week window for any written assignment, and I don't deduct any points on that. But if week 2 and week 3 written assignment was not submitted by this point, unfortunately, there is no additional credit that can be offered on those. We are in week 5, the project 1. You still have till the end of this week, week 5, to submit that 11:59 p.m. in your time zone to get that in for full credit. Again, I don't deduct 10%, 20%, anything along those lines. It's just not, it makes life a lot easier. I just allow the 2 weeks, but after the 2 weeks is up, I don't allow any additional assignments. We are going to be taking a look at hypothesis tests this week in terms of whether you reject or fail to reject the null hypothesis. That's going to be the focus of this written assignment. It opens this week, week 5, and will remain open through the end of week 6. And then your project submission will open week 7. That's another 190 points inside the class. That will be due by the last day of class, 11:59 p.m. in your time zone. So again, that 2-week window is standard. If there is an exception on an emergency situation, we would need to discuss that on a one-on-one basis. Unfortunately, time management is typically not a reason for any extension past that 2 weeks, since I do give you that life happens events to get those items done. So please do keep that in mind. And then keep in mind, as you are completing participation and challenge activities out there inside the Zybook, the gradebook automatically updates those scores. And I'll show you from week 5's perspective where that video is for the challenge activities. And that one actually has some participation ones worked in as well that require any Excel calculations. I demonstrate those inside of that respective video from week 5. So we'll take a look at that here shortly, where that's located. Feedback and grading schedule week 1. All items should be there. The week 1 through 5 items, challenge and participation activities, those automatically update. Anything from week 2 through 4 should be in the grade book by Tuesday of week 5. Typically, I get those out there by Monday morning. That's my goal, but I allow myself at least through Tuesday to get that in if some life happens event on my side comes into play. The initial feedback on week 4's written assignment should be out there by Monday morning at the latest on Tuesday, and you'll see any feedback on week 5's written assignment no later than Tuesday of week 6. All right. Contact information hasn't changed since the first 4 weeks. Best way to get a hold of me is via email this week, m.weeman@snhu.edu. You also have the phone number as well. Try to solve issues, anything via email first, but not opposed to meeting via Teams or Zooms, anything along those lines. But usually I benchmark to get back with you 24 hours. The exception is on Sundays. If you send something either late Saturday night or sometime on Sunday, you may not get a response until sometime Monday morning. And then last but not least, just as a reminder, I cannot stress the importance of time management, of breaking up things throughout the week. And I totally get from a life happens events perspective that things can only typically get done on the weekends. I appreciate that, but at the same token, you want to make sure that throughout the week, especially weeks that are on discussion forums, to ensure that you get full credit, to make sure that you are doing things without the week, maybe taking 30 minutes each day of going into the class and taking a look at things that are there, so that if there are questions, we can address that during the week, so that if the weekends are your best time to work, you can get through things as well. Don't hesitate to send me questions. I will respond as quickly as I can for any questions or concerns that you might have. So let's go into the class portal. Give me a second here. This should be similar to what your class portal currently looks like in terms of it, but let's go in first from the announcements perspective. And as soon as this comes up, you are looking for the announcement. As I continue to scroll down here for week 5, there should be a video here, and there we go. Well, one more, sorry. You're looking for week 5's challenge and participation activities. This is one that I've personally done in terms of going through the challenge activities. It also has some participation activities if it involved an Excel calculation. So please review that video. It's a great resource to take a look at in terms of getting help and seeing some step-by-step demonstrations, especially when it involves some of the calculations. I've defined step-by-step on how to do that inside of these respective videos that are out there. So that is your first piece. We come back into the learning modules. I'm going to scroll back up to the top. Course modules and learning modules, and let's take a look at week 5. As soon as it comes up, there we go, module 5. All right, so has some resource information, introduction. Make sure that to ensure that you are syncing your Zybook challenge and participation activities, you at least click each of these once. We talked about this in the first 4 weeks. The scores do not transfer until you click that link, the participation one, at least once. That same deal with the challenge activities. Those have to be clicked at least once inside of module 5 for those scores to transfer from Zybooks into the class portal gradebook. And that has to be done on your end each week. So you'll want to do that this week, week 6, week 7, and week 8. I'll remind you in the subsequent housekeeping videos to do that. Let's take a look at the assignment for this particular week. We'll bring up this link. All right. So you are going to be doing some calculations that are going to involve hypothesis test up. What you're going to be identifying relative to the information, and there is a video at the bottom that goes through all this. You're going to utilize a set of data that's here, house listing price by region, and you're going to do a calculation of identifying the null hypothesis and the alternative hypothesis relative to whether it's a left-tailed test, right-tailed, or a two-tailed test relative to what you come up with as your hypothesis test. So that two-tailed test is going to be a relationship that has an equals versus not equals relationship. And again, the video is going to address a lot of this. Your alternative hypothesis is either going to be a less than relationship if it's a left-tailed, or a greater than relationship if it's a right-tailed. You're going to identify your level of significance. Typically, for most things, I'd say the majority of them out there, you're going to use an alpha or a level of significance that's going to be 5%. 5% as a decimal is 0.05. And you'll see inside the videos, as well as the Zybook stuff that I demonstrated, that how you're going to compare a p-value to the level of significance and whether you're going to reject versus fail to reject. Take a look at that Zybook video as well, in conjunction with the video presented out here, that will go through that underlying process of, okay, if it's less than the level of significance, you're going to reject the null hypothesis. If it's greater than it, then you're going to fail to reject the null hypothesis. So you're going to have that information. So you're going to do data analysis. You'll do your calculation of the sample mean and standard error. And then it goes through all of that relative to that t distribution. That is also going to be used. You're going to use those corresponding items. So if it's an RT, that's right-tailed. T distribution is left-tailed. 2T represents two-tailed. So you're going to be utilizing that. You'll state your decision, whether you reject or fail to reject. One important thing, there is no such thing as accepting a null hypothesis. You're also going to read this week something that is called a type 1 and type 2 error that's relative to what's called a false positive and a false negative. You cannot ever assume that a hypothesis will ever be accepted because of those errors that can slightly happen relative to things associated from a hypothesis test perspective. So again, you'll write up all those. You'll want to make perfectly sure as well that you address what initial data you use. So inside the introduction, the setup, make sure that you are addressing what source data was used. Do a screenshot of it, make sure that it's there so that I can see that inside the Word document. Again, attaching the Excel file is great, but I'm not going to open up the Excel file and look at, okay, Mike, Mr. Weeman, go into the Excel file, copy back and forth. I want to see the source data you're using inside of the Excel, or excuse me, the Word document that you're creating, utilizing this Word document template. Make sure you're addressing everything that's listed there. At the bottom, here's the rubric of how things will be assessed. Typically speaking, if you get the exemplary, you're going to get a standard blurb out there that says that you earned full credit, great job, etc. If I deducted points, you're generally going to see that in two things inside of the feedback. I'll address something to the effect of, okay, you're missing X, Y, and Z in it, have that, as well as my standard blurb that shows how the points were evaluated in that instance. So follow the rubric, make sure you got all of the components so you can maximize your score out of the 100 points. Hope this was helpful. Again, if you have questions, don't hesitate to send me an email or leave me that voicemail, and I'll respond as quickly as I can. Have a great week. We'll see you next week in the next housekeeping video. Thanks.